Let me introduce our next eminent guest speaker, Dr. Sujata. Dr. Sujata is a senior professor and head of the Department of Special Education at SNDT Women's University, Mumbai. She has over 3 decades of experience in teaching, research and teacher training in the fields of special and inclusive education. She serves on various national and international academic bodies, including NAC, RCI and NCTE. She is a consultant for curriculum and policy development for children with special needs. Dr. Bhan has presented at numerous conferences globally, collaborated on projects with organizations like UNESCO and UNICEF, and contributed to academic developmental initiatives under NEP 2020. Her passion lies in empowering teachers and fostering an inclusive society. Dr. Sujata is going to throw light on the concept of universal design of learning, that is UDL, and its application in the classroom. Ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause in welcoming Dr. Sujata.
Very much for the kind words, and a very good morning to everybody here. Maybe we just crossed noon, so good afternoon. I prefer to say good morning because we are kind of alert at that time. The moment we say afternoon, it kind of sets in lethargy. But I'm sure everybody here is all pepped up after a riveting session. You've just heard, I got a glimpse of that, so I have a very high benchmark to match. So a bit nervous, I must say. But anyhow, okay, so let's keep ourselves engaged. I don't want to do all the talking. We are all teachers here, and teachers don't like to listen for too long, right? All right. So I have a small, as she's already told you what I'm going to talk about. My presentation will be first understand the concept of UDL and then apply, how do we apply the principles of UDL in planning instruction in an inclusive classroom. All of you must be familiar with UDL. I'm sure it's not a new term anymore, though I would say still in a very nascent stage in our country. So we do a lot of capacity building on universal design for learning at various schools, regular schools, and children with learning disability are definitely found in regular schools. And I think if teachers follow UDL, the most beneficial will be our kids with learning disabilities. So I think that's the relevance of having this conversation here in this international conference. So you're all familiar with this strategy of KWL. So we'll begin with that. I have kept a sheet of paper, so I would like you to make a column. So what do you know about UDL in the first column? In the second, please write what would you like to know about UDL. And the third one we'll leave for later use. And we'll see whether you learned anything or you already knew everything. So that will be my test. Okay? So yeah, just 2 minutes. What do you know about UDL and what would you like to know about UDL? This is your individual sheet, so you do not have to discuss with anybody. You can just write your own, like, I don't want to come across as a novice that I don't know anything, so I'm hesitant to share it with others. So this is your personal sheet, so you can just write whatever you want. Okay. I have a QR code here. If you can use your phone and see what is in store there. Again, 2 minutes, individual work, in your head, see what you do and what you don't do. Again, you don't need to share it with anybody. It's your individual work. Many a times we feel that we are doing fairly decent job. Our students are happy with us and I'm a great teacher. Rarely we sit back and reflect Am I doing it all right? Do I need to change something? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But it's nice to be a reflective teacher and just take a stock of what do we do in the class and how many students in my class are actually learning. And it's not just what we assess at the end of the year, it's throughout. While we are teaching every single class, how many students in my class have I really impacted? How many of them are with me? Or there are some, like we just saw in a beautiful video, who are not really understanding and we prefer to just ignore them. Let me know if you're not able to open it. You're not able to open it? You just try. Binali, can you help me? It's working for some. For those, it's a Word document. Yeah. Who all could open it? Just raise your hand. Going to be. Write it first. Okay, got it? Anybody who hasn't got it? I think most of them have got it. So I'm assuming, since I'm not seeing any raised hands. All right. So now there are a few, it's like a checklist for yourself. Go through each item and in your head, see what you do and what you don't. Again, no need to share it with anybody. It's just for you. This is just an activity to become mindful of what we do in our class. You're not getting it still? Did you get it? You got it. All right. You don't have to respond. You don't have to.
It's an editable one. So you don't have to respond.
No, in your head. I mean, it will take longer, that's why. I mean, you can. It is an editable one, but I don't want you to respond it right now. I just want you to go through it. In your head, you can respond because we are not taking responses from that sheet. That's why. It will take more time. So just have a look at each item and in your head, you know whether you do it or you don't. That's the whole objective. All right? One more minute, or can we move forward? Okay, what you can do is you just let it be like that right now, since you can, yeah, later. You can read it right now. Okay, so you cannot edit it right now, never mind. Oh, it's not. Binali, okay, is it visible for the rest or some?
It's not visible, it's blank.
Somebody has deleted it. Oh my God.
Where it opened editably.
Yeah, please do that.
We have a WhatsApp.
I didn't want it to be shown like that, but now, yeah, okay.
Do you want to see it on screen or are you okay with you want it on screen, yes or no?
We can look at it and do it in our
All right. So we have variations. Some may want it on the screen, we put it on the screen. So how do I get it on the screen now?
It's being sent on the WhatsApp group.
It was kept editable so that you could put your yes or no, but due to paucity of time, I thought let's avoid that. But somehow somebody has by mistake deleted it, that's all right. So So can you see it now? No.
See it sometime. The idea is for everybody to be able to see.
Yes. If somebody can WhatsApp to your peer, then that would be faster. Right now?
Manali, someone put it in the group.
All right. Let's get that.
That's working.
It's already come. Manali, show there. Yes. Thank you. She also wants to show that she can get things right? She's a troubleshooter here. Thank you so much. All right, so everybody can have a look. Has everyone gone through each of the items? Yes. Yeah? All right, then I will just close it and move on because we also are struggling with time. Yes, presentation, slideshow, from this to this to, yes. Current slide. Okay. All right, now I'm showing you some pictures. You have to identify if it reflects any barrier. You can just raise your hand. Anyone can. Height of the board. Okay, there is something wrong with the height of the board, right? The distance. And anything else? And the height. The distance and the height? Okay. Width of the no support and width. When would it be a barrier? The person is able to cross it very easily. So why would this be a barrier? Yes. For a wheelchair, yes. So some situations, some things can be a barrier for some, may not be a barrier for another person. But we have to see if there is a barrier for someone, we have to remove that barrier. Now this one. A bit tricky there. You see the steps, you see the ramp, then what's the barrier? The railing, okay. And it's in the center. The railing is in the center. So whoever designed that, what was the thought for that? Right? Okay? All right. Now the point I'm trying to make here is many a times when we talk about accessibility, we only think about ramps and the lifts. And there as well, the gradient of the ramp will be such that a person who's using a wheelchair will find it extremely difficult to use that ramp. We never pay attention that if we are putting a ramp, whether it has the right gradient or not, whether you have the railings or not. So our designs many a times are done without any thought. Now look at this. What do you think about this picture? Now there are many places where we cannot have a lift. If you visit places like I go for access audit and the people in the university or the college will tell me, no madam, it's an old building, so how do we put lifts here? It's not possible. So this is somewhere you can find a solution if you really want to. They're called chair lifts, where you can't put a lift, there is a flat surface like that and it elevates and takes a person up through the stairs. It's called a chair lift, so you can do it. The other one you would have seen, I'm sure, at many places. Yes, where? Metro and airport. What about our BMC buses? What are the buses called here? In Bombay we say BMC? PMC. Okay, PMC buses, do they have this facility? No. Why not? Don't think about it.
Now there is, in BRTS we have this system where they stop exactly near the staircase.
Okay. So they're able to. Or maybe in some buses we have, but not all the buses do not have it. What do you see in this picture? Of the menu card. Okay, very good. What else? Can you see a plate, blue in color? Is it like any other plate? It's not. It's adapted with compartments. Do you see any spoon there?
Yeah.
Any change in that? It's like any other spoon. It may not be very clear, but it's an adapted spoon. Okay, so we have made adaptations because the child who's using it is a multiply disabled child. She's non-verbal. So because we do not deny anybody the right to make the choice, she's been given a visual menu card and she can ask what she wants for like anybody else. Now do you see a picture next to that? Now how is that plate designed? Where do you see these plates? In the restaurant. So again, the design of the plate, which can be used by everybody. We also eat in that plate. What is the whole idea? It doesn't spill. The food doesn't spill. It's compartmentalized. So it's more, manageable, you can say. So we can make things which are universally appealing to one and all. Now this picture is from your city. Has anybody been to this garden? Has anybody seen it? What is special about this? Can you see something here? It's an accessible garden for one and all, where not just students, children with disabilities can go, anybody and everybody can go. So my purpose of showing you all these pictures is to just make you think for a moment that how we need to make places accessible, physically as well as socially, right? Now from here come the concepts of universal design and universal design for learning. Universal design was a concept which came from the field of architecture. Universal design is means to promote the design of products and environment that would appeal to all people and provide access for individuals with disabilities as well. So when we are designing any product, anything, we have to bear in mind that it should be designed in a manner which can be used by one and all. So when you see any product, have you seen the manuals with it in different languages? Sometimes in English, French, Spanish, Hindi, right? So that more and more people can use it. Sometimes the products are so complicated. Like for example, when we started using smart TV, the remote control had so many buttons, the TV had so many buttons, we would be little hesitant in using it and also thinking that something may just conk off. We are not very comfortable. And now today's generation, the younger children, they're more comfortable, better equipped than us in using any kind of technology. But the fact is that initially when we make things which are very complicated, we are not familiar in using that and we become a little hesitant. So now think about a person who has perhaps a learning disability or visual impairment or any other disability. How comfortable will they be in using products which are very complex? So we must make things, even if we are using a lot of technology, but in such a simplified manner that everybody can use it. That is the concept coming from universal design. Now this concept was adapted for learning. How? By CAST. Have you heard of this organization, CAST or CAST from the US? Now, this is where Universal Design for Learning started. They were the ones where this research happened and it continues to happen there. In 1984 it started. It's called Center for Applied Special Technology, CAST. They applied the principles of universal design to the learning environment. So the framework for curriculum reform and education, that means they envisage that to help students with different disabilities, it is important that it has that universal appeal and we do not need to exclude those marginalized students to a separate classroom when we talk about pull out, pull in. Instead of that, let everybody be in the main class and learn together with everyone. So the UDL guidelines are a tool that can be used to design learning experience that meets the needs of all the learners. Generally what we follow is, this is the way I'm going to teach, one size fits all, even though we know that it doesn't work that way, but best for me is the way I teach. If you can learn that way, good for you. If you can't, well, sorry, I don't know what to do, right? So this is a set fixed curriculum that I have. You have to fit yourself into that curriculum. Is that the case today in our schools or no? Yes. Isn't it? We have fixed way of examination, fixed way of teaching. It's just a fixed system which is not allowing too much of flexibility. The systems do not allow. Well, there will be some teachers, I'm sure, who are really passionate about teaching and want every student in their class to learn. That's why you all are here to learn. How can I make that difference? Right? That's the motivating factor. But it's the management, it's the system which is so rigid. This is how it is, so the students have to fit into that. While the whole thinking should be that I have to adapt the curriculum so that I can fit. The curriculum has to fit to everybody's needs. That's the whole philosophy of universal design for learning. Now look at this picture. You are in a much better city if you have traveled around. I don't know, maybe in Pune you may find a classroom like that, I'm sure, because in Bombay I do find classrooms like that. But when I go to the interiors of any state, Maharashtra, just few kilometers from my main city, I find this kind of scenario. So what do you think when you see a picture like this? What is the first thing that comes to your mind? The child is separated. Now, think about the classroom that you are in charge of. It may not be exactly like this, but do you think the child with disability still feels sidelined, excluded, and not belonging to the whole class? Yes, that is the scenario, right? So this is a picture which is not just taken, it's a real classroom. Now, this is where Katie Novak, she has done a lot of work in Universal Design for Learning, and you must read her books and see her videos. You will see what all, in a very, again, in a language that you feel you can relate to and you understand that it's not so difficult. She equates a universal class like going for a buffet party. Everything is available and you give the autonomy to the person to choose what you want to eat, right? There is vegan, there is Jain food, there is veg, there is non-veg, everything is available. And you, according to your preference, pick up what you want to eat. This is the whole philosophy. This analogy given by her actually depicts an inclusive classroom where we are following universal design for learning. That means you are giving so many options to the child and he chooses the way he can learn the best, right? Now, why do we do that? Because we understand that there is variability in the learners. This is the basic premise in special education, in education if I may say so. No two children are alike. You will not see similarities in two kids who are having learning disabilities or visual impairment. They will have their individual variations in the way they learn and everything. So when we try to understand UDL conceptually, what does it say? It talks about how a child learns, why a child learns, and what a child learns. So it talks about recognition network, which focuses on multiple means of representation, which means a child will, whatever you're showing, whatever you're talking about, the child will recognize something from there and understand it better. What he can recognize, he will learn that better. So it's important for me to present it in a manner that the student can pick up something from there, can recognize something from there. So how we present information and content in different ways is very important. Now, if I go on talking and you're just listening to me, after a while, I'm sure you're all going to get very bored, you'll start thinking about something else, you will get easily distracted. So how do I engage you? Now, what was the purpose of having that QR code? I could have simply put it there. You know, students in general, they like to use technology. Even we like to use technology, and it's a way of engaging. Okay, let me try. What is in there? Some element of curiosity, some element of variation from the routine lecture. So how we engage the student, it touches the affective domain of the child. Affective networks is why, which means how learners get engaged and stay motivated. Everyone, each one of us has a different motive to be here, right? So what is in that you present that will motivate the participants to stay hooked on to you for next half an hour or so. It's very, very important. Now, I go on talking, you're listening, sometimes you may remember something, some things you may not remember after maybe 10 minutes also. So what do you do with this information that I'm sharing right now? That is your expression, application of strategies to process, information that is being shared. So strategic networks means how are you processing this information that I'm talking about will help you retain this information for a longer period of time, and when I ask you, or in a classroom, when the teacher asks, the child will retrieve that information and show whether the child has learned that or not. Now there are two frameworks for UDL. There is a vertical framework and there is a horizontal framework. First we talk about the vertical framework, which talks about multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, and multiple means of action and engagement. Has any one of you seen this model? It's a very commonly used model when we talk about UDL. So in a classroom, as a teacher, I have to focus on three things. Now this is sometimes very overwhelming. Now it's also said that don't get overwhelmed with it, may not focus on all the three parts of UDL. You can focus on one thing at a time. You can focus on just multiple representation or just multiple engagement, whatever appeals to you. That's not, you don't have to go in a sequence, because UDL is primarily based on flexibility, so it's not a rigid model. So what we mean by multiple means of engagement is provide learners with autonomy. Again, this is the fundamental in UDL that allow the children that autonomy. Now, I want to relate everything to the beautiful video she showed. Now, every student is making an appeal. Give me more time. Let me do things my way, right? So this is what it talks about. Give the autonomy to the child to choose what he wants to do and how he wants to do. Then he will stay engaged. Make the content relevant. If there is anything, for example, right now, if some of you are thinking, oh, I don't know if I can ever use this, you won't pay attention. But if most of you think, okay, let me pay attention. I think I can use it in my class. That will keep you engaged. So if you make the matter relevant to your students, they will be more interested. We say in special education, again, I keep saying special education because I'm from that, but basically it's about teaching. It's about any teacher. When we contextualize and personalize teaching, students relate better, understand better. So when we are just standing here giving a lecture which is very theoretical, students do not relate to that. But when you bring it closer to their home, make it very relevant to them, what they can identify with, then only they will understand and it will stay with them. Create an accepting and supportive classroom environment. Now go back to the picture where this child is sitting in one corner. If the child does not feel that he belongs in that classroom, no learning will take place ever. We are again looking at Maslow's basic needs. So if my basic need of having that feeling of worth, my teacher values me, my peers value me, the child is not going to learn. So it is for the teacher to create that supporting learning environment which is very conducive for learning. Okay? Now multiple means of representation, again we have to bear in mind that there can be different kinds of learners in my class. Now I don't know who's a visual learner, who's a kinesthetic learner or verbal learner, I don't know, but I'm going to provide everything just like the buffet, the analogy I gave you. So display information, flexible formats by varying the size of text, images, contrast between what you're showing, using tactile models. Now I may say, why tactile models? I don't have anybody who's blind in my class. Why use models in the first place? What information is there on the chart or in the book is good enough. But when you give variety of representation, every child is going to get interested, motivated, and those who are visual learners will definitely learn even better. So what is good for all is essential for some. This is again a fundamental rule you must remember. It is good for all, but essential for some. They will not learn otherwise. But yeah, it is good for everybody. Nobody will mind if you use a chart or a model in the class, right? So good for all, essential for some is again a fundamental principle of UDL. Use flashcards, provide descriptions for all images, graphics, videos, animations. Use graphic organizers, particularly for children with LD. We always use graphic organizers to structure the information. We know that they learn better when we present it visually using any kind of graphic organizer. Action and engagement. Now here many a times when I conduct workshop, they say, ma'am, but we have fixed exams. The way the exams are conducted is also fixed, so how can I bring in change there? But I'm sure everybody, even at college level, school level, you have internal assessments and you have external assessments, right? So at least in the class, can we give them an alternative method of, presenting their knowledge? So alternative means of response for physical interaction with materials by hand, voice, joystick. Again, these are different examples. So basically allow learners to compose in multiple media. It's not necessary just to have a paper pencil test. Suppose we can ask a child to, nowadays podcasts are very common, right? So if you give a task to a student, okay, you have to create a podcast on this topic. Now you choose whom are you going to interview for this particular topic and then present it with everybody else. It is just an exciting way for this child to start creating, thinking, being imaginative, and create something and share it with everybody in class. Make a cartoon, any animation strip, or anything, whatever you think the child will be interested in, again, depending on what their interests are. The idea is to know whether the child has understood the concept or not. How you value that, how you evaluate that can vary. Now, UDL also has a horizontal framework. Now, what does this focus on? It talks about access, build, internalize, focusing on the goal. We have to start any teaching with a specific goal, right? We always know what we want our students to learn. So here, when we look at UDL, we want our students to become expert learners who are in control of their learning and are not always dependent on the teachers. So first we provide them access. Build is we give them opportunities to build on those strategies, and internalizes that eventually the child internalizes what you have taught and he's become an expert learner. What does it mean? Access is, again, we give access through multiple means of engagement by providing options for recruiting interest. That means, how can I engage the child so that he's interested in what we are doing in class? Provide options for perception. That means some will use visual perception, some may use auditory perception, using different forms of perception for understanding whatever you are teaching in the class. And provide options for physical action where the child is actually doing something with what you're teaching. Building is to build on that, because when you're teaching anything new, the child has to be given a lot of practice so that he builds on anything new that you're teaching in the class. So provide options for sustaining effort and persistence. What happens initially when you're teaching something new? It may have some element of novelty and the child may be interested. But after a while, in soon little time, he may lose interest. So how do you maintain or sustain his persistence and continued effort in that particular task? That is what we have to build. And provide options for language and symbols. Again, not just use one language. Maybe now even our national education policy is talking about use of multiple languages, particularly the mother tongue. So depending upon what language your children are most comfortable with, use that language, use different symbols to depict the knowledge that they have. Whatever materials we are showing, use different symbols to depict that information. Provide options for expression and communication. Again, how can they show that they have understood in multiple ways of expression, and how can they communicate that in multiple ways? Internalizes, any learning is actual learning only when we are able to internalize it. It is not temporary, it is there to stay. So how do we internalize that? Is provide options for self-regulation. Now this is important because we want our students to have a control over themselves. So they are not always dependent on others, but they are able to regulate themselves in their learning. So provide options for comprehension, provide options for executive functions. Now this again, if you look at children with learning disabilities, we give them a lot of strategy training. I'll show you some examples. So basically what I'm trying to show you here is the concept of UDL, which talks about the vertical framework and the horizontal framework. In a gist, I would say you have to just focus on the variability of students in your class or whatever you're teaching. How can you present that? How can you engage them? And how can you evaluate them in multiple ways? That is the gist of it, okay? And also, very importantly, that how can we make UDL the way of teaching? Like it is just a way of life, as we say. This is a way of thinking. So eventually when teachers use UDL over a period of time, it becomes the only way that they can teach. And I have been to many places where UDL is not just used in the classrooms, even in their management, the whole ecosystem of the college, of the university depicts of UDL. So they take it to that level in the Western countries, but here we are, as I said in the beginning, we are still at the nascent stage, so we don't need to get overwhelmed, but we have to take cognizance of this fact that if we are talking about inclusive education, UDL is the answer to that. There is no doubt about that. When we take everybody together and do not, that single child does not feel that you're doing anything special for him. It is being done for everybody. So there is no stigma attached to any child who has any disabling condition, or not just disabling condition, coming from a different vernacular medium, for example. Anybody who feels marginalized in the class for whatever reason, coming from different economic background, different ethnicity, different religion, or whatever, no child will feel like that if we follow UDL in our classroom. Okay, now just a few examples. Multiple means of engagement for access. Let students take a pick of the assignment. These are not just few examples. I'll quickly run through them. Be generous in praising your students. For sustaining effort, communicate the goal. Like, I need to know as a student, what is it I'm expected to do? So we need to be very clear about the goal as a teacher, and also communicate the same to our students. So if the students know what is expected of them, for example, more the severity of a particular disability, more we use visual schedules. I'm sure there must be teachers here who work with children with autism. So we display the schedules on the board. Yes, they know exactly, first I have to do this, then we have to do this. Their calendar is in the visual form, their day's schedule is in the visual form, just to make the students aware of what is expected of them. That helps them in sustaining their effort throughout the day. And for self-regulation, ask students to reflect on their day of learning and use emojis for self-assessment. I mean, again, teachers can be creative and can think of different ways. I've just given one example. My improvement plan. What do I want to improve? I need to know my goal. Again, nothing has to be ambiguous. When I say he's a good boy, he behaves very well. How? Be very specific in behavioristic terms as we write our lesson plans. In a very behavioristic term, we write, what is the goal? So what do I have to improve on? The student puts it down. Action is, what steps will I take to meet my goal? And finally, he evaluates himself. How will I access and measure my improvement? So this is just an example. A child makes a chart for himself to regulate his own behavior. So the teacher helps the child in regulating his own learning. So you give them things like that, any worksheet with emojis or anything. Again, it's up to the child and the teacher, but the point here is that you're helping the child in self-regulation. Multiple means of representation. Again, we give options for perception, language, and comprehension. For access, offer things to listen to, offer materials to see, use different language building. Again, for children with learning disabilities particularly, we use language walls. We put words. Every day the child learns a new word, you put it on the wall, and after a week you have a whole lot of words on the wall, and the children use those words in sentences and paragraph writing or whatever their written work they do in their class. They may also be encouraged to create their own symbols to depict anything. And again, that leads to imagination, creativity, that helps them in building their interest in what is being taught in the class. Internalizing for comprehension, ask students to link new information to old and use KWL. Again, they will be addicted. Okay, what did I know? What I wanted to know, and have I learned that or not? So that helps them to internalize whatever is being done in the class while the teacher uses multiple means of representation. Now here again, I've shown you just one example. For example, the teacher wants to talk about physical changes. Now there are innumerable examples to depict that. Some child will pick one way, another child will understand another. You demonstrate some, you show a picture of some, or you verbalize some. So the point is, when you're teaching something, don't stick to one method, don't stick to one TLM. Use variety, which is stimulating different senses, and that will engage the students better. Multiple means of action and representation. Again, expression and action is giving them options for physical action, giving them options for communication, and giving them options for executive function. So ask students to demonstrate what they have learned, allow students to use technology. Now today, a lot of technology is being used in classrooms, particularly schools which are maybe more elite schools, so a lot of technology is used there. But all students have phones. Many schools do not allow students to bring in phones to the classroom, but you can tell them you can do this assignment using a phone at least at home. So that keeps them interested instead of wasting their time on Instagram and things like that. If you link what you are doing in class with interesting activities using the phone, the students will use phone more constructively. And ask the students many a times to create their own assignments. You don't have to always create an assignment for him. Ask the child, how would he want to show that he has learned this thing? Maybe he'll say, I will role play. Maybe he'll say, I'll write poetry on that. Maybe he'll say, I'll do any different way. So encourage them to think differently and communicate, just again to sustain their interest. And for internalization, again, we teach them various strategies, how they can remember, and it stays with them for a long period of time. Now again, I'm giving you a few examples for multiple means of action and expression. Now you can see when to use stationery and stationery. Can anybody tell me the difference between the two? Yes.
So the first stationery is the stationery items like what we use in our pencil pouch.
Yes.
The other stationery is idle, which is
Okay,
what we use.
absolutely right. Have you come across students, even adults at times, who make a mistake in these two words? Now, can we give them any strategy how to differentiate the two?
Yes. So stationery uses paper which has E and letter writing which is E. So the stationery word which has E is the one that we use.
Yes. And the other one?
Is stopped. So like a railway station which does not move, stop.
Okay. Okay. Quite close. Again, nothing is right or wrong in that, yes?
We do something similar, but for stationery we say pen, E,
Yes.
and car, A.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
AR.
Yeah. So again, it's not like there is a fixed way of doing it. We say pen, pencil, both with E, so pen and pencil, stationery. At a place, so A, at a place, so stationery. It won't move from there. Similarly, common spelling errors. Tomorrow, many a time students, particular with LD.
They write TOMM.
Yes. So children with learning disabilities have major problems in spelling. So here we do strategy training for their spelling errors. So very common mistake is they use double M. So any strategy that you can think of, nothing is right or wrong. Anybody can come up with any strategy.
As you have shown in this, we can show the picture related to the word correctly. So that pictorial image
Yes.
can be in the...
Yes. That is a different thing. Here I'm talking about the spellings. I'm coming to that. For spellings like tomorrow, okay, I'll give you mine. What we use is one moon and many stars. So it's star, R, so there's double R, and one moon, so single moon. Similarly for necessary, again, a very commonly misspelled word. Yes,
I used to misspell it a lot.
yes.
So what I used to do was, for a shirt, you need one collar and two sleeves. So one C and
Great.
two S.
Absolutely. One collar, two socks. This is our strategy. So all are right. So like that, a teacher very creatively can come up with strategies. Children with learning disabilities cannot come up with their own strategy. So that's the role of the teacher. We have to make these strategies, give it to them, practice it with them, build on until they internalize it. That is the whole idea. Now the other side, if you see the picture, it is just another way of evaluating. Yes.
Help me with one.
Yes.
Parents. I had once spelt it as PAIRENTS.
Okay.
My logic was it's a pair.
Yeah.
And when I was asked, I was told this is
Correct,
incorrect.
correct.
And
English
I
is
was
a
asked.
bad language,
I told my teachers I spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
I told my teachers I spent a lot of time thinking about this
Yes,
spelling. It's
yes.
got to be right.
Yes,
It's a pair.
Yes, I completely understand. That's what I said. English is a language like that. So, but we can't misspell the word. So we have to
Correct.
learn it somehow. So we all develop our own strategies. I remember as a kid together to get her. So you just chunk, and chunking is the very easy way of learning any long word. But sometimes that doesn't work. And sometimes if the child with learning disability, chunking doesn't work. So we have to keep on thinking and come up with something funny. And it's a principle in psychology that anything which is funny stays with you for a longer period of time. So there's a typical example there when you have to make a list of things that you have to buy from the market, and we tend to forget, you know, we come back, oh, I forgot this. So you make a list, and how do you associate with funny locations on the way, and that's how you memorize it. The funnier it is, the easier it is to remember. So basically all of us will develop our own strategy, but for a child with LD, we have to help them with the strategies. So this is another example of evaluating, helping the student to express his knowledge in a better manner, in a easier manner, which may appeal to that particular child when you have a visual display of the different forms of water. Yeah? Yes. And different words are there. So use the crossword and use bottom. Are you all able to see it? Yes. Yeah. Okay, let's do the last one. Just the last one. So looking at the picture, you get the clue and then you fill in the word. Yes, you got it right. You got it. So that will help the student to solve, depict his knowledge, as well as multiple means of showing that he has learned it. That's just that. Okay. Now I'm giving a few examples here. I spoke a lot. I hope you paid attention. Something is retained, so you want to tell me what it is. If the teacher highlights or emphasizes key elements in text, graphics, diagrams, or formulae, what is she doing? Between the three, multiple means of representation, multiple means of engagement, and which is the third one? Action and expression. Right. So this is the example of. Very good. Everybody agrees? Yes. Good. Uses multiple examples and non-examples to emphasize critical features. You must have heard of concept attainment model where we say a good example or a bad example. So now the teacher is giving multiple examples, emphasizing non-examples are bad examples to emphasize the critical feature of a particular concept. Say for example, I'm teaching the concept of square. So I give examples which are essential for an object to be called a square, and then I give examples which do not have features that lead to the definition of square, so to speak. So this is very good. You all are very, very good students. Wonderful. Projects that involve physically constructing something. So you're engaging students to do something and show that they have understood it or not. Provide links to news articles.
Engagement.
This is the last one, so all. Engagement. Because you're giving them engagement to learn more, to read more, so they're getting engaged and understanding whatever concept you're teaching in a better way. Wonderful. That's wonderful. All right. So again, what we have to think here as teacher is, first, I need to believe in UDL. See, anything that you do in life, unless you believe in that, somebody tells you follow Sri Ravi Shankar, somebody tells you follow Ramdev, somebody tells you something, unless you believe in it, you will not do that, right? And person who believes in it has benefited from it, it naturally comes to that person to talk about it. You know, if I follow a particular thing, I'll tell my friends, hey, I've tried this keto diet and it has done wonders to me. Please do it. Somebody will look at me, have you? Doesn't show though. No, I'm just giving an example. So we have to believe in universal design for learning ourselves first, and then see how do we go about it and how will it show the results. So the first thing when we are following UDL thinking is, who are the people, what do we know about the students in my class? I need to know my students. I need to understand what their limitations are, what their strengths are. That's for any teacher, right? So I need to know my students very genuinely. And what is the purpose of my session today? What is the purpose of my teaching this subject? When I go in the class, I need to be very clear. What do I want my students end up learning at the end of those 30 minutes class that I'm in for? And what could be the potential barriers? You know, when we are doing the B.Ed program, we write our lesson plans. But most of the times when we are in the schools, we don't write any lesson plan. It's only some schools who insist that their teachers write their plans, have a logbook every day, they have to do it, and the teachers hate their authorities for asking them to do that. But it is essential that they do. So it is important for us when we write that down, that is when we will realize what could be the potential barriers. Because when I'm planning, I'm thinking of all the students in my class. And then when I think about Ashish, Ashish, I think will have a problem if I use this vocabulary. Sarita, I think she'll have a problem if I ask them to do this long writing of answers. So I have to come up with something which will be okay for Sarita and okay for Ashish as well, right? So I'll come up with what are the potential barriers, what might get in the way of their learning. So what kind of support do I provide them? You know, we've all learned when we started learning how to write a story, we would have some words written for us, and using those words, we had to write a story. All of us have learned like that, right? Now, those who were not very good in writing would just use those words in one sentence each, and if there were 10 words, there would be 10 sentences, and the story would be only of those 10 sentences, using exactly the words which were given to support us. But those who had a flair for language, who were better in writing skills, would weave the story around those 10 words. Yes or no, right? So here again, so I have to now think how many words I give. Do I have advanced learners in my class, or do I have students who have problems in writing? So keeping that in mind, I will provide the support. So support also has to be provided, keeping in mind the variability. Somebody was talking about gifted children in the previous session, so I have to keep them also in mind, and I have to also keep in mind who will be struggling in my class. So what kind of support and how much of support will they need? I have to provide that. So for that, I again go back to my UDL guidelines, look at the checkpoints, and in my head I see, okay, I've done this, I've done this, I've done that. Have I taken care of everything? If I follow the UDL guidelines, I'm sure I'll be providing them all the multiple options in representation, in expression, as well as in engagement, and that will definitely remove the barriers in my classroom. So then, give it a go, just try it. You may not be successful the first time. As I said in the beginning also, we may not be able to look at all the 3 parameters at the same time. It gets overwhelming. For a teacher, it does become difficult. So we begin with one thing. Anyone, start with that, then move on to the next one, and as you will see the benefit, as you will see that the students are benefiting from it and are learning better, you yourself will be motivated to try it again and again and again. And it's not very difficult, like in the cliched way it said, you know, it's not a rocket science. It's really not rocket science. It's simple belief that I have to reach out to every single student in my class in the way they can learn, right? Teach me the way I learn. That is the fundamental principle in education. So if I follow that, surely we'll be able to do it. And when we get the feedback, when we do it and we see what went wrong, and we replan, next time will be better, the next time will be even better, and that's how it goes on. I want to show you a small film. Now this is by Dr. Margaret Flood. She's done her training at CAST, and she has been using UDL in her college. She's working in a university, not a college, and she practices in her classroom. I have personally interacted with her. There are a lot of videos given by her in YouTube. You can see that. And she lives UDL. I mean, it's so inspiring to talk to her and just play it.
What does UDL mean to me?
Yeah.
It means the glass half full way of thinking about how we design, how we teach, how we assess, how we engage with our learners every day. It's about loosening the lid so that every one of our learners can reach their potential, rather than us deciding what that potential is or how we're going to measure potential that just fits one type of learner and not every learner in our room. For me, UDL it opened my classroom. It helped me get to know who my students really are, and that who is at the centre of learning, teaching and assessment, and it's at the centre of UDL. And by going into my lessons and planning for variability and diversity in my classroom, it meant that I stopped thinking about what was wrong with my learners and putting something in place, making accommodations for them, and thinking about what can I do to remove barriers in the learning for everyone. What can I do within my design and my delivery to make my content more accessible, more engaging, and more achievable, and make it fun and make it interesting for everyone. And that sounded really daunting at the beginning in terms of I moved from what do I have to do for that student or that group of students who have or with, to, oh my God, I need to have a choice or a plan in place for every single student. For those of us with like 100, 200, 300 plus, that's not going to work. But I moved from that daunting to the, actually, this is the goal that I want all of my students to achieve. I know they're all coming in at different access points. I know they're all going to take a different way to get to the end, and what the achievement looks like at the end will be different for all of them. And what I need to do is put in intentional choices, intentional tasks, intentional ways for students to communicate with and back to me and with each other, to show what they really know and not what our traditional way of learning, teaching and assessment tells us we know. So it opened a world for me, and now I have what I call my little treasure chest with all my UDL tools in it. And what I've realised is that the same kind of options are used. The materials and the content will be different, but once you get your head around that variability and putting in predictable options and intentional options and flexibility based on the goal of your lesson, that actually it comes down to 2, 3, 4, and sometimes because of the goal it will only be 1. So yeah, it was that. It was my loosening the lid, opening the door, and making my learning experiences more enjoyable and engaging for everyone, including me. Yeah, and just seeing students achieve and be themselves and have themselves seen and valued and being invited to communicate what they know in a manner that suits them best. So it's, to me, UDL means everyone. And if we think about that, if we think about everyone, then there are no margins, there are no barriers, because we're removing them, because we are thinking about everyone.
So this was just to reinforce what I'm talking about. When you hear anybody else talk about the same, it kind of makes sense, and you feel that maybe, yeah, it does work. Now this lady, she's a Fulbright scholar. She did this training at CAS, and now she's back at her university and teaching.
What does UDL?
Yeah. Okay, now we come to the action part of it. So I'm going to share another QR code with you. Go through that lesson plan. It's a UDL lesson plan, and I've asked them to give a chart on each table. So in the group, you think of your own topic and you plan your own UDL lesson plan based on the template and the example that I'm going to soon share with you. Now, I have been trained a bit, I wouldn't say I'm a master trainer or anything, but by people from CAST, and from then it began my interest, and my department people, we said, okay, we are interested means we have to implement it. So unless we internalize what we have learned, it's just a talk. So what we decided in our BA training program, we started introducing UDL teaching. As a concept, it was there in the curriculum since I think 2015, but we started giving lessons, training our students, giving lessons in UDL. So they follow the same format, they prepare the lessons, and they go to inclusive schools and deliver those lessons on which they are marked like any B.Ed training, you know, the practice of teaching. So UDL has become an integral part of our course curriculum. So it works. That's why I'm trying to tell you that it does work, and the student feels so satisfied when they come back and they say, again, I don't want to name the school, but some years back we would go to a school which was a so-called inclusive school, and a student would be sitting not exactly like the way I showed you in that picture, but quite like that in the class with everybody, but still kind of marginalized. And if our student who was there for their practice of teaching would ask, because it was not a visible disability, so she would ask the student some question, and somebody else in the class would say, Madam, make a gesture, he's mad, he won't answer, so don't even bother asking him. So that was the kind of inclusive classroom. So when our students now go and they're able to reach out to every single child and get them to respond, they come back feeling very, very good. So it's a very good method. So just have a look at the QR code. I hope it works for everybody. All right, now. Okay. Anyone for whom it's not working? Yes? Okay, now this is a full, complete lesson plan. We won't get that much of time, so you can take a part of it. You can choose a unit, you can choose a topic which you think you can, what's the time? We have about 20 minutes, so let's say 15 minutes. 15 minutes that you can all in a group work on, and then 5 minutes, any one group randomly I'll ask to come here and present. Okay? So it's a group work, you choose your topic, and as per the plan, following the same guidelines, flexibility is the choice of topic and what means of representation, etc. you will use. You don't have to follow the same. But guidelines as in, it is depicting the vertical framework of UDL, so follow that. You have to follow that. There is no flexibility in that. But then what goes inside is extremely flexible. Is everybody clear? Has everybody? There is like silence. The silence is what? Are you reading it or? Okay, all right. But I'm assuming that everybody's got access to it. Okay, and in the group you have to do it together, so there is no pressure. Yeah? So 15 minutes. All right? And the moment I say your time starts now, tick, tick, 1, tick, tick, 2, again the pressure. So no pressure, please. All right? We don't want anybody to work under any kind of pressure. Easily, with each other, at your own pace. But by the end of 15 minutes, something that we can talk about. All right? Yes. It's entirely up to you. We have 3 parameters, but if you want to focus only on one, it's all right. If you want to focus on all 3, your choice. Complete autonomy. You do not have to take the same topic, that there will be very little variability because already the examples and all are there. So, anything that is measurable, observable, that's how you will define your goal. Clear? Back to your grade classroom, where we say, how do you write your goals? How do you write your specific objectives? So it has to be behavioral term. At any just to be. You can just think of anything that you have talk about you're a psychologist. So what do you do? You do counseling, what do you do exactly? Or just assessment? No, what do you do? Your work is what? Are you working with children, assessing them? You are teachers and you are still teaching. Okay? You are still teaching. You are still teaching. Now suppose you have to teach. I gave the example of spellings. Now you are a reading teacher and children with disabilities, particularly those with epilepsy, have great problem in spellings. How will you teach spellings? Multiple means of teaching spellings. Think and make that. Cut this chart half, middle half, break half. So not just chunking and coding, come up with creative ways of teaching them spellings. Okay? Going back to your reader please, specific objective, general objective, being behavioristic in your language. Yes, we did. I continue to do that even today. That is the learning type of. You reap the benefit once you're out, right? Wonderful. So follow the same pattern because we have to follow the UDL guideline. Inside what you do is entirely your आराम से एजुकेशन डिपार्टमेंट से ये देखने आए हैं कि यहाँ पे काम हो रहा है कैसे खाली किसी टाइम पास हो रहा है all clear just take a small what I said मुझे एक भी कम पड़ता है मैं 2-3 20 का पूरा नहीं आपको आधे में हो जाता है ऐसा कुछ सिखाएंगे flexibility whichever way you can कोई बात नहीं no problem we are making small steps lead us to क्या सिखाना है कैसे पता लगेगा कि मैं सीखा कि नहीं तो सीखेंगे उसके बाद उसके अंदर क्या करना है वो बात पहले डिसाइड करके राजा का हलवा बनाना है उसके अंदर अच्छी दाल और गाजर चाहिए कैसे बनाएंगे वो बात
Tub and tub
means mastering.
Okay.
Today, and I talk about that. What are the multiple means of representation for me? When I'm talking about UDL, how do they do it?
When the song stops or the shape का song play करके when
So for Abhishan or correct. Making correct answer.
orally झालं ते.
So this is our take on UDL that we've just gone through the session right now. So I'm Zamora and we have Vanika, Sunanda and Chaitali. This is the team that we worked on this. So we took the topic basic shapes. We did the representation, the engagement and the expression. And we've done representation, so we look at objects for shapes. The egg being an oval, a notebook being rectangle, a sandwich for square and triangle, nowadays kids have a lot of different shapes of erasers. So we've looked at hexagon erasers and things like that. Then for engagement, we thought of doing different activities. The group will do a yoga display of shapes, paper folding activity for shapes. Again, a song about shapes, flashcards and showing objects that have shapes. The surface identification using your moving your hand over a shape. Then sand drawings. For expression, they play that game called the paper folding where they do the tippy tippy, you choose whatever color. So we're going to put shapes there. Then describe the object in an I Spy game, write a story about shape. Also drawing a cartoon, because I've seen cartoons, my kids watched cartoons with shapes on it. Angry Bird as well. And your four-corner game where the kids can move around choosing their favorite shape. Also for assessment, we can do a treasure hunt and do riddles with shapes and shape sorting.
Wonderful. I think comment on representation. Can we do representation any other way? Representation. No, I say can anybody give another example of representation? See, what I see here, there is only one type of representation where there's the images using different objects, but it is still an image. So you're just showing images. So there is not multiple means of representation.
You can represent.
You can. I think what ma'am is trying to get here is that this is more visual, and if we do a verbal description, I think it will be giving another way of doing it. So this being only images, like since we've written images over there, but describing it also will be another way of doing this.
Anything else that can be done with this? Representation.
So I can give this notebook to a child. So I can ask the child to say, so how many phases you see in this shape.
Okay,
so the child will say, no. So I'm engaging and I'm showing it. Visually I'm representing it. And I can ask the child to make a organizer, graphic organizer. I can ask the child using iPad. I can ask the child to record and show it in the class.
Good. Somebody had read.
We can ask the students to stand in that shape in a particular
They are doing something like that. Yeah, they're doing something like that. My question is related to representation. Is there anything else that we can do in representation? Yes.
Probably we make this board with wheels and then you put the wool around it to make that particular shape. So the child is making it.
That's again engagement. That's again engagement. In representation, I'll give you one simple example. We can also show video where there is something shapes like. So, thank you very much. Thank you. Absolutely. So, as I said, to know, you need to know that here there was only one form of representation. We need to have multiple means of representation, for that is the basic thumb rule of UDL. Anybody else?
We can even show a flashcard of sun. And then we can ask them.
Stating the goal and the objective is very, very important. Just 1 minute. Like they said, we'll be teaching the shapes. Now teach what about the shapes? Is it identification of shapes? Is it relating your things around with that shape? Or is it maybe the spellings of a particular shape? How do you spell square? How do you spell a hexagon or whatever? So you need to be very clear what is the goal of a particular lesson. You begin with that and then you plan your activities.
Clearly we've written this before ma'am could tell us like the objectives. Okay. So we have decided, sorry, I'm Avanti, this is Medha, Shati, Soumya and Padma. We are group 2, and so what we've said is we've taken grade 2. Our subject is English, and the topic is blends. Our objective is students will be able to enhance their understanding about blends. To be specific, we've taken L blends. Our specific objective is at the end of say 40-45 minute session, students, if students are asked to demonstrate their learning about these are the subtopics, is they should be able to read at least 3 out of 5 words correctly, fill in the blanks with the correct blend, and match the blend with the correct word. Our contents would be concept and definition of blends, accuracy and fluency, and generalization.
They are doing their B.Ed right now, and you can see that they're really doing it well. It's depicted very beautifully, yes.
Okay, so our lesson element is meaning of blend. The teaching procedure will be explicit instructions along with involving the child. And so now we further divided it into representation, engagement, and action and expression. So in representation, we have decided to use our flashcards. So we've made the worksheets, the flashcards, you can see it here. I will just go through briefly, and then Soumya will explain the rest. So our in representation flashcards, we have L-blend charts, videos, and 3D objects. We're going to use 3D objects as well. In engagement, we plan to use a song to engage the child, and the song also Soumya will sing.
Yes, you always say with us.
And in action and expression, we have written worksheets and match the pairs. So these are the pairs, and this is the graphic organizer.
They have to cut that picture and they have to stick it in front of that plate. So this is the engagement and the discussion.
We thought of a song, so you all can also join us. So we'll also understand whether we've used UDL into it, because each one learns differently. So maybe let's try. Blur, blur, blur says black. Blur, blur, blur says black, black, black. Then you all can repeat, yeah. Clur, clur, clur. Clap, clap, clap. Clur, clur, clur. Clap, clap, clap. Flur, flur, flur. Flur, flur, flur. Flow, flow, flow. Flow, flow, flow. Glur, glur, glur. Glitter, glitter, glitter. Glur, glur, glur. Glitter, glitter, glitter. Plur, plur, plur. Plur, plur, plur. Plain, plain, plain. Plain, plain, plain. Slur, slur, slur. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Slur, slur, slur. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Thank you. You all are wonderful audience.
That was really, really good. I mean, just at the spur of the moment to come with some poetry, draw so much, make worksheets, everything. Very, very good. So, like that we see, I won't have time to take more people to come and share, but you share amongst yourselves over lunch, you can talk about it. It is not anything difficult, it is not anything out of the world, it is something that we do. It is just that we have to become mindful of how we do, why we do, and see the benefit of that. And I'm sure you will all realize that when you practice it, it will definitely bring you positive results. Go back to your first sheet. What did you learn? Just write 2 points, because I don't want to eat into your lunchtime. Just 2 points, what did you learn? And if nothing, you can write that as well. So that completes your activity. Another thing I want to ask you is, how did I use UDL principles in this delivery of this talk, workshop, session, whatever you may call it? How did I use UDL?
The activity you have given us is an engagement process. Your representation was the video and whatever you have shared about the video, that was the representation.
What was my multiple means of representation? Multiple means of engagement.
Engagement is checklist is the engagement.
Only checklist.
And lesson
An expression. An expression. So that was my way of evaluating you, whether you've understood the concept or not. So there are n number of ways in which we can evaluate. It's not necessarily a paper pencil test that you have to take. That's it. So just write down what you learned. That's for you. That you don't have to share. If you say nothing, that may be disheartening for me. So keep it to yourself. Sorry? Good. That's good. That's good. Happy to hear that. And that brings us to an end. And I want to say that let's take a step today for an inclusive tomorrow. When we talk about inclusion, it should not be restricted to just our classrooms. But classrooms are the beginning of inclusion. Yes. What we have to aim for, the goal. As I said, for writing any lesson plan, begin with the goal. So what is the goal when we talk about inclusion? It is not just the inclusive education, inclusive classroom. It is to create an inclusive world, an inclusive society, my inclusive city, my inclusive school, my inclusive home, right? If that is my goal, I have to begin with talking about and showing inclusion in my classroom. Because a single child who's kind of sidelined, stigmatized, ostracized, or any which way marginalized is not going to help him get integrated in the community even later. So other students who are supposedly not having any disabling condition or are not coming from the marginalized section of society have to, grow with this firm belief that we are all equal, everybody has right to everything. So it's not a matter of choice, but it is the only way you do it. So you embrace the diversities in your class. Every child embraces everybody else, and that's possible only if we as teachers model that, encourage our children to, inculcate those values of inclusion, and that will pave the foundation for our future inclusive society, world, and whatever. Right? Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.
Yeah, question. We can take quick 2 questions and go for the next session.
This is, I'm just curious to know, now, you've been working in this field for so many years now and traveling all over. How many schools do you see that are actually using UDL? Or
well, in our country, as I kept saying, it is still at a very nascent stage. We do a lot of workshops with NCRT in different schools in different states of the country. And many a times what I realize is that the teachers are very eager to learn. The teachers are, many teachers, I don't want to make a generalized statement, everybody, and neither I want to sound pessimist. There are many, many teachers, and I think we should be optimistic, and that's how we will move forward. Otherwise, to count the barriers, there are plenty. So the teachers are eager to learn, and the teachers are eager to practice. Unfortunately, we do not do, impact study. That when we have done a workshop here, how many of you, I don't know, right? But other than conducting workshops when I'm going to schools to assess, I do access audit and we have NAC visits and whatever. Many schools are still not right there. And I would blame the apathy in the management for that. There is extreme apathy when it comes to inclusion at all levels, not just at school level, even at the college and university levels. The first thing they will tell you, but we don't have any child who's using a wheelchair, we don't have any child who's using a white cane, we don't have this, we don't have that. They're not even willing to acknowledge that, have you done any assessment? Have you actually paid attention that who are the students in your class? Does a child, just because he's coming from a different vernacular background, lingual background, is finding it hard to do whatever you're asking him to do. Because this is the way we teach. This is my curriculum. This is my set system of evaluation. You have to fit into that, right? But having said that, I feel many teachers, more than the management, I give credit to the teachers. Teachers who are passionate, they do make a difference in their class, right? So I really want to applaud those teachers, whether it's in the rural India or it is in cities. You will always find teachers who are really dedicated and devoted to their, passionate about their work. And they are the ones who in their own way, in their own limited, they don't have much authority, but in their own little way, they try to make a difference. So they may not be using UDL as UDL principles, but they are good teachers. They are trying to make a difference. So that is again a bottom line. So basically, you have to reach out to every student in the class. You may not be knowing concepts of RTI or UDL or differentiated instruction. Leave aside that, but you are making, with whatever knowledge you have, difference in somebody's life. But yes, when you know the correct way of doing things, then the efficiency increases and you're doing things more systematically. That is why this capacity building programs are being organized by the Government of India now. Principally, or as far as the policies are concerned, yes, the government is showing a lot of interest in inclusion. They are taking many initiatives like this access audit. Very recently they have started where experts are selected to go and check in colleges, because we have a very minimal rate of students with disabilities in higher education, and that's a matter of concern. So they have now started doing this access audit in colleges and universities, not just accessing the physical aspect of accessibility, but the curriculum aspect of accessibility. And I have done about a dozen access audits. It started just from December, and it's very sad to say curriculum accessibility is nearly zero. But if you look at it positively, is at least the government is going to become conscious of the fact that if this is the reality, then what do we do about it? So some beginning has to be made somewhere. So looking at things, the glass is half empty or half full. Let's look at half full. Things are happening, and let us be the difference that we want to see. So be the change that you want to see. So in my little capacity, I will do this much. And that's how things spread. So yeah, let's be optimistic. Anybody else?
There are questions, but I think we are slightly really off schedule.
I'm available on mail. So I shared my email ID. Yeah. So anybody at any point of time you want to have anything that you need to clarify or have a session or whatever, we are always available. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sujata. It was enlightening, and I totally understand the need of an hour, and so we need to close. I take this moment to express my heartfelt gratitude and thanks to Dr. Sujata for her enlightening and engaging session on UDL. Your session was just not informative but interactive, and we can see the UDL in action right now, and it's not that easy that we think. Whenever we are doing the activity, we have realized that. The activities helped us to experience methods and environments that can make a big difference in learning outcomes. The phrase that resonated with most of us was good for all, but essential for some. The principle encapsulates the beauty of UDL, designing learning spaces and experiences that benefit everyone while ensuring accessibility for those who need it most. You took us through the origins of UDL and its real-world applications, not just for students with disabilities, for every type of learner, whether in a classroom, workplace, or anywhere in the community. Your examples from flexible teaching methods to universally accessible public spaces showed how inclusion isn't just an educational goal, but a societal necessity. Thank you so much once again for helping us see that when we design for inclusion, we create better learning, better communities, and a better world. Thank you so much. Now, yes. So yeah, we are going to have a break for lunch, and as like yesterday, the lunch will be provided at the ground floor, and we will be right back by 2:30. Yeah.
Enjoy your life.